Hi there, in this video I'm going to run through the difference between a distributor and a non-distributor, and then also run through some specific ideas in terms of potential ways to succeed as a distributor, because this can be quite a competitive space to be in. So let's dive straight in, and apologies for the wind noise outside. So firstly, difference between a distributor and a non-distributor. Question to ask yourself would be, do I sell other people's products or other brands' products? So for example, someone selling Nike shoes would be a distributor, but someone manufacturing their own shoes or sourcing their own shoes and selling them under their own brand, that would obviously be a non-distributor. So in terms of the key challenges of being a distributor, the main thing is thin margins, because you're selling a product that multiple other people stock as well, and obviously you guys are all selling the exact same product. So specifically when it comes to the online space, it's basically a price war between the different distributors of who has the lowest price, because you're all selling exactly the same product. Now, in conjunction with these thin margins, stock turnover, and that obviously translates into higher revenue figures, is critical, because at a thinner margin you have to be doing more sales to actually make any money at the end of the day. And then the third thing to mention here is cash flow. Usually if you're a distributor, you're buying from some sort of supplier of that specific brand, and generally you don't have too much control over those stock buys, generally resulting in you having to buy a lot of your stock up front, which does pose cash flow restrictions on your business. And then the last thing to mention here is stock buys, and this kind of ties into the supplier brands doing the marketing themselves. So in the space of being a distributor, you are obviously selling products from another brand, and that brand, like for example Nike or Adidas, etc., will do their own marketing for their product range. So as a distributor selling their product, you actually don't need to advertise the characteristics of the product itself, the features, etc., because the supplier brand or the core brand of that product has done all of the marketing for that specific product themselves. So all you need to do as a distributor is advertise that you have the stock, so you do stock that product, and what sizes, colors, etc. that you stock. Now, just going back to the challenges over here, a key note to kind of take from this whole scenario is what stock you buy is critical, because you have to ensure that you're buying products that have demand. If you buy products that don't have demand, you're simply not going to sell them, and you're going to sit with that dead stock, and it's going to be difficult to clear those products as well, because your margins are so thin as it is. So actually buying the right products is critical for any distributor, and I'd recommend putting a lot of effort and investment into that side. So just touching on the advertising approach, and I guess the differentiating factors between a distributor and non-distributor. Obviously with a distributor, you are selling someone else's products or another brand's products, so that brand obviously does all the advertising, and all you have to do is advertise that you have the stock and what sizes, colors, etc. you stock. Then just in terms of the advertising approach for a distributor, I'd recommend prioritizing advertising placements that, number one, are cheap, and number two, show or effectively show what stock, sizes, colors, etc. you have in stock. And there are two main areas that you can use to obviously follow this approach. Number one is shopping ads, and then number two is any sort of dynamic ad on Facebook, so dynamic carousel, collection ad, etc. So just to give some examples of those, this is an example of a dynamic ad on Facebook. It looks a lot better on the platform itself. This is obviously the meta ad library, where as you can see, it just shows the product image, the name of the product description, and then it'll have the price as well. And obviously it pulls in multiple different products from the catalog, or the product catalog that's synced from Shopify to Facebook ads. And then just an example of shopping ads on the Google side, if we searched for running shoes, as you can see here, we've got the specific picture of the product, name of the product, price, the distributor that's selling that specific product, etc. And this is kind of where the price war, I guess, comes into play, as if you've got two distributors serving in the shopping network, selling the exact same product, exact same model, exact same color, the user or the person searching for the specific term is simply going to click on whoever's got the lowest price. Even if it's 2% cheaper, the one versus the other, the customer is going to go with the cheaper option unless they have interacted with your brand before, for example. So that's just one thing to be cognizant of there. Then following on from that, on the distributor side, some ideas to potentially succeed as a distributor from a pricing and margin perspective. So obviously, as I mentioned, prioritize your stock buying approach and make sure that's well researched, that you ensure that you're buying the right products that sell well and you don't end up with cash flow issues and dead stock that you can't clear. Buying the correct products will obviously result in stock selling faster. It will allow you to achieve higher revenue levels even at a thinner margin, and should help you, I guess, make more money because you can do higher revenue levels at that thinner margin. Then the second side of, I guess, the ideas to potentially succeed from a pricing and margin perspective as a distributor is to essentially use the popular brands that you stock as an acquisition approach. So a way to get customers into your physical store, onto your website, etc., and then essentially introduce your own range of products at a higher margin alongside the branded products that you stock. So essentially, someone comes into your store or onto your site for or looking for a specific Adidas running shoe, and then you might want to sell a range of unbranded or branded under your personal brand socks that may be appealing to that user to buy alongside the branded pair of shoes that they're coming to your store initially to buy. Then following this same approach of stocking your own product or your own branded product is to offer a related service relating to the products that you're selling. So just a quick example off the top of my head. In the kite surfing industry, lessons is a huge thing and people charge a lot for lessons. So what I've seen a couple of the local kite stores do is they obviously stock a set of gear or sets of gear from the brands, and beginners would obviously come to the store looking for their first set of kite gear from a specific brand. The kite store would obviously sell that gear to that beginner at a reasonably thin margin because they're obviously a distributor for that specific brand of kite gear. So they don't make much money on those initial gear sales, but then they kind of tie in the training or the lessons as well, which they obviously have full control over in terms of margin, and they would make most of their money from the lessons as opposed to the actual kite gear sales. So that's another approach to potentially lean on if you're a distributor. Just to quickly touch on the non-distributor side, this is more so what my entire YouTube channel is focused around. So if you want further context on exactly how to go about that approach, most of my content is, I guess, angled at these types of businesses that are essentially selling their own product. They have to do their own marketing and they have to build their own brand equity in the niche or industry. The benefit of being a non-distributor is obviously you have full control over the margins of your product. You have control over the supply chain, sometimes the manufacturing process as well. And you can obviously customize that side to suit yourself better, specifically from a stock buying perspective. You can plan your batches or plan your product to come in smaller batches to ensure that you don't need as much available cash to support bigger stock buys fewer times in the year. Because your margins are thicker, you can actually push more spend into advertising at a much lower efficiency because of those thicker margins. But obviously it's essential to get clarity over those profitability numbers. And again, that's essentially what my entire YouTube channel is focused around, getting clear visibility over these profitability numbers so that you can succeed as a D2C business. Just something I forgot to mention from an advertising perspective on the distributor side is any advertising campaigns or spend that you do spend on the paid ad side must be operating at an extremely high efficiency because your margins are so low. That efficiency of ad spend relative to return has to be much higher. Otherwise, you simply can't sustain that from a profitability perspective due to those thin margins. So hopefully that helps. Please let me know if you have any feedback on any of this. And I really hope you got some value out of this. And thanks again for your time.